Did you guys know that one out of two of us will develop cancer in our lifetime, statistically speaking, if you're a female? And one out of every three men will develop cancer statistically in their lifetime. Whoa. That chemo could have horrific adverse reactions that linger on for years. And we've discovered ways that seem to help the cancer warriors get through chemo a little bit easier without having all of those harsh reactions and without having them linger on for many years. I am your host, Shayna Melissa Stockman, the world wellness expert. I will help you get better and feel better when your doctors don't, won't, or can't. Today, we have a very special episode. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and our very, very special guest is not a one time breast cancer survivor, but a two-time breast cancer survivor, and not a one-time chemo survivor, but two-time chemo survivor. Miss Karen English B. Sorensen is the proud mama of two young, beautiful ladies and the grandma to four beautiful grandbabies. She was diagnosed with breast cancer twice, had over 26 biopsies before her first diagnosis, tons of reconstruction, chemo after the first cancer, and many years later, even after her mastectomy, that breast cancer came back in the same breast and needed chemo again. She is an inspiration to so many other cancer and chemo warriors out there. And I would love for her to share with us how she was able to go from surviving to thriving and what she did differently her second round of chemo so she didn't have all those harsh reactions lingering on for many years. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Karen English B. Sorensen. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be here and supporting fellow cancer warriors. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Shayna. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's really a privilege, and I hope I can share some information that will be of help to someone.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that you are here to inspire and motivate so many other cancer warriors to show them that you could go from just surviving to truly thriving, that you can get through the chemo and those nasty reactions and maybe not have those long-term reactions from the chemo. So can you share with us your journey when you were first diagnosed? Set up for us the scenario if you were going for your mammos and going to the doctor and how it got discovered?
Sure. So I had lapsed, it was probably about a year and a half that I had lapsed to get my yearly mammogram. But I had gone to my gynecologist and everything was clear. 2 months later, I found a lump. It was very, very palpable to the touch. It was obvious through the t-shirts. So from there, it was really a journey. It was 26 biopsies later that I was confirmed malignant. And when you are small chested, that's a lot of biopsies.
Yes. Thank
So,
you for sharing that with us. It's important. Can I share a tiny bit more of your story if you don't mind?
sure,
Since I
sure.
know. Okay, so it's important that, I believe you didn't have family history of this cancer. You were a
Yeah.
non-smoker, you stayed skinny, and those are a lot of risk factors. You weren't on hormone replacement. You had your mammo just a year earlier. So ladies out there, please don't wait beyond that year. This was just over a year since her prior mammo. And also, your gyno had done the breast exam 2 months before you discovered your lump as well. So it's
Mhm.
important to try to get a breast exam at least yearly by your specialist or your GYN. But it's also important to do those self breast exams, right? Because you were the
Yes.
first to detect it. So
Right.
the mammo is important yearly. If you forget when, pick your birthday month or every January. If you have dense breasts, get a sonogram of both sides if you're told you had fibrocystic. And like Karen did, Karen was very fortunate enough to do her own self breast exam and discover it. So kudos to you for that, because that was an early detection that it probably wouldn't have been discovered for another year on the next mammo, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
it's important. Get your mammo every year. If you have dense breasts, a sono every year or more often, and do your self breast exams every single month because you may be the first to detect it.
Yes.
And you felt the lump and you saw the lump, right? And then 26 biopsies later before your diagnosis.
Yes.
Wow. And so you had to be your own advocate, right? You had to say like, hello, wait, there's something going on. Biopsy me more, or how did that go?
Yes. So I actually had drawn on the diagram. They give you a diagram on those sheets of paper when you check in. You know, if you have anything unusual on your breast or anything, go ahead and circle it, put an explanation. I did all of that. Nothing was said. I was called back for more pictures. And it was, I said, well, you know, what about the lump that I showed you? And they're like, oh, what lump? And so it was just, it was really just kind of a fiasco. But from there, did a sonogram, and from there ordered the biopsies.
Mm. So that's important for us to be our own advocate because the doctors are so cut for time sometimes that they just easily dismiss things. They see lumps and bumps and masses all the time. They're like, oh no, another benign one. So thank you for standing up for yourself and being an advocate and say, hello, wait, there's something going on there that needs to be
Yes.
addressed. And it's important for the ladies to know that she had 13 biopsies that were negative because the
Hmm.
biopsy might get just a healthy piece of tissue and might not have actually touched that lump, right? I think it was the
Right.
needle aspiration biopsies that totally
We're
said
negative. Hmm.
negative.
Yeah.
Wow, because they
Yeah.
were getting healthy pieces of the tissue and not a piece of that lump.
Right.
So it's important for the ladies out there. If your needle aspiration biopsies are negative, maybe push for more biopsies. It was your core needle biopsies, right, that showed it that were more
Yes.
invasive, more painful, the ones the
Yes.
ladies don't like to do.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Wow, wow. And can you explain for us? I know chemo could have nasty reactions, and I know you went through a lot of reconstructions. The reactions you had from chemo, the first cancer diagnosis.
Yes. So it's very common in like the red devil is what it's called for adriamycin cytoxin. It's very common to lose your hair between the first and the second treatment, and the nausea. They do give you anti-nausea drugs, but they can only go so far.
Hmm.
So the nausea is a thing, hair loss is a thing, and then as the treatments progress, you realize that you have got usually some kind of gut um, issues with inflammation in the gut. And then there is bone pain, there is neuropathy. Your neuropathy can last for even up to a year or longer after your
Yes.
treatments end. And I had 14 months of treatment. I have 6 weeks of radiation and 12 months
Wow.
of the, yeah. So
Yes.
and then it took me 2.5 years to heal on the mastectomy surgery.
Wow. And that's a good point to mention because I know that neuropathy pain can last for many, many years because,
Hmm.
being the nurse practitioner in the field since the 90s, I've seen a lot of the cancer warriors and many years later they still have that neuropathy. And
Yes.
can you explain for them the fatigue and how long that would last and the chemo brain, what that's like?
Chemo brain comes during chemo. It is a very real thing. There is chemo brain and there's brain fog, and a lot of times people put them together. But brain fog to me was like it would just I would just have blank moments, just could not recall anything. The chemo brain would last for months afterwards. Like
Hmm.
chemo brain can last for a while. It's the there is that connection there where the drugs affect the your thinking process, and it is so real.
Yes.
It,
And I've heard the fatigue. A lot of times, the patients I know that had chemo before, I'm recommending what I recommend now, that fatigue would knock them out for days. Would it knock you out for days?
yes, I was usually down for about 5 days after the treatment,
Wow.
after the infusion. You could mark off the calendar about 5 days, and before your body started to recover back to some sort of normalcy. And then, of course, if when your treatments are every 3 weeks, you have about a week and a half of feeling good, and then you get shot down again when you get your next
Mm.
treatment because they're usually every 3 weeks.
Wow. Now I want to fast forward because we want to show you it's not just the bad side. We want to show you the good side and how to get through it as well. So I want to fast
Yes.
forward there. So now you had your first breast cancer diagnosis, you had all the reconstructions, you had a lot of complications and infections and whatnot. Then you survived chemo and all those nasty reactions. And then fast forward, it was many years later that your cancer, I believe, came back in the same side where you had the mastectomy. So that's
Yes.
important for women to know. If you think, listen,
Yes.
breast cancer runs in my family, I'm going to get the genetic testing and get a double mastectomy. You could still get breast cancer there because they don't remove 100% of the tissue. They get 99, say, of it, and there's still that little bit there. So it's important for women to know that your breast cancer came back after you had the mastectomy and the chemo and finished all the treatments many years later. And can
Yes.
you, I believe your symptoms were the skin discoloration and the puckering, right? So
Yes.
that's important for women to know. That also, look, when you do your self breast exams, look in the mirror every month. Is the coloring changing around it? Is there dimpling inward like this, where
Definitely.
you see a dimple,
Hmm.
meaning that mass is pulling inward? So you were very smart to realize those symptoms. You went back, you started, let's fast forward. You got another diagnosis of a breast cancer in the same breast where you had the mastectomy. Many years later, you had the dimpling, the discoloration. They're starting chemo. I guess those chemo reactions came back.
Oh, with a vengeance. Yes,
Wow.
they did.
And yeah. Um, can you share with us what you decided to do differently this time that actually didn't make the chemo reactions as significant and last as long?
Sure. So I had actually talked to my oncologist about some herb and plant based pills, some supplements, and she said absolutely not. And so I decided to be my own advocate when everything that they gave me to counterattack the side effects was not doing anything. And so I did more research on my own, and a friend had shared possibly something I might be interested in. And I tell you, it was not an easy choice because I had to confront the oncologist and I had to
Mm,
tell them, this is what I'm going to be taking because nothing you have given me has worked. And so I did. And I said, just note it in my chart. This is what I'm going to. And I cannot stress enough to people, you have got to be your own
yes.
advocate because you are the one in your body. You know how you feel. They go a lot by books and by what they have had
Mhm.
presented to them before, but that's not you necessarily. So
Yes.
please be an advocate for your own health.
That's very important because the doctors, they go to medical school to learn medicine. So they're
Right.
not aware of things outside of the medicine realm. And sometimes they just don't want to say they don't know. And because they don't have experience at it, they just dismiss it and wait, I'm not experienced at that. No. Well, no, you didn't check into it. So it is, thank you for being your own advocate and standing up for yourself, especially if you know. I know a lot of patients before we started doing what we do now with our cancer warriors that were suffering, like you said, even with all the antiemetics, anti-nausea, they were still nausea, vomiting, having those, and nothing was helping their chemo brain as far as medications go or anything
Mm-mm.
like that. And nothing scientifically have I ever seen in 30 plus years, prescription wise, has ever gotten rid of that nerve pain ever. I've never seen a prescription drug. I've seen things that are non-prescription help, like with what we do, but I have never seen a prescription drug get rid of neuropathic pain ever.
Right.
never never permanently. So that's important for you to be your own advocate. And I know, you know, so you're just like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but I knew I had to do something different for myself. And like,
Yes.
what did I have to lose? I mean, I couldn't lose any more weight. So,
Mm.
you know,
Yes. Yes, you have to do something different, because what happens is if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same outcome, right?
right.
So, and I've seen thousands of chemo patients do the same thing with the same medicines and be in the same boat with those nasty side effects. So
Yes.
you and I know there's got to be something else out there. And it's important to know, like, I just had a fellow NP just a couple days ago diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer. Starting chemo, is now also doing what you and I advocate for, because she's being in the field for so many years. She knows the prescriptions just aren't enough to control those symptoms.
Yeah.
So can you paint for the picture, once you started doing these natural approach, these gene activators, if you will,
Yes.
what how we know how your chemo reaction was before, but how did it start, like once you started activating your genes and your genetic highway so that your own body can do what it used to do and should do? What changed for you as far as your chemo reactions?
Like everything. It's like the curtains were pulled and it was dark and you opened them up and the light was coming in. That is as drastic as I can tell you on my journeys. So it all started out with a plant-based gene activator, just activating the cells in my body, and I had no clue that the massive amount of change, and it truly turned it my huge inflammatory gut was within days. Within 3 days I could tell it was changing. From there
Wow.
on I never looked back. Everything kept improving. I had no neuropathy at all. I had no chemo brain, and I had no brain fog. And I have been alive and thriving ever since. I feel truly, truly blessed. And it is because, you do have to be your own advocate.
Yes.
You have got to speak up for yourself.
Yes, it's important. That is so awesome, because I too had suffered with severe nerve pain, and after I started activating my genes, I don't have it anymore. I do not have it anymore. And right here, right now, we can't claim to diagnose, cure, treat, mitigate any disease with natural things, but we're
No.
just saying our stories. And I had, those of you that know me well, I had excruciating nerve pain. I couldn't even touch my hair, my face, nothing. Look.
And
So,
it works. Yeah.
yeah, and people need to know, oxidative stress wreaks
Mm.
havoc on our bodies. It causes what we know as inflammation. Inflammation's never good. You get an inflamed elbow, it hurts. Oxidative stress causes inflammation, which is not good. And we know when we activate our genes, we are drastically reducing our oxidative stress. And
Yes.
I know personally, cancer loves oxidative stress, loves free radicals, loves inflammation. So why not reduce that oxidative stress, that inflammation, that free radical damage? I mean, it was such a heaven sent for me as well. I mean, I don't need any prescriptions anymore. Look at this, I can touch my face.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's truly a beautiful a picture of just being able to live life
Yes.
again.
Yeah, and it's important because we know that oxidative stress, it's linked to 9 of the top 10 leading causes of death in the US. Cancer
Yes.
being one of them, pneumonia, flu, diabetes, heart disease. Why wouldn't you want to reduce that number? We're not saying it's going to guarantee you don't get any of those things,
Mm-mm.
but I think it could better your odds, right? And I want to
Mhm.
better my odds. That's why I started activating my genes. I had family history, diabetes, cancer, heart disease. And I'll tell you this quick little story. My grandma raised me in the 70s, and she taught me the power of suppressing genes back then. Only now are we talking about this. All of her
Wow.
siblings had diabetes. She ate right, stayed skinny, never developed diabetes. So I learned from her, we have the power to decide if a gene is going to be expressed or suppressed as well. And that's why I started activating my genes. But the bonus was my nerve pain not there anymore.
That is so wonderful. It is.
Isn't that awesome?
And
Yeah.
I would just want to jump in and just mention this really quick. A lot of people do not consider glutathione a household word
Oh,
or term. But these gene activators, they increase the glutathione that our body naturally produces, but as we age, it doesn't produce it like it did. And so
mm,
when you increase that glutathione production, it is like getting antibodies there in your body to help
yes.
fight. It's
Yes.
mm,
And anything now, these gene activators, people that don't realize, they're all plant-based, little capsules, caplets, juices that we do.
yes.
So that we don't have to weigh out, measure out. We don't have to grow organic and, take a blender out and do all these herbs or none of that. It's just a capsule or a caplet. So that's
Right.
important to know. It takes us like seconds a day. And the glutathione is very, very important. It's the master regulator. And also, people that have like tremors from Parkinson's, They did a study. They gave them IV glutathione, and their tremors immediately stopped. However, the IV glutathione only lasted like 2 minutes. But when we activate our genes, we're revving up our own production of glutathione throughout the day. So I
Yes.
used to have a tremor. I don't anymore. Which
That's
is like,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. And also, people need to realize that when we activate our genes, we rev up production of our own good defenses, not only like glutathione, but our own super potent antioxidants like SOD, superoxide dismutase, and anything that we make within our own body is so much more potent than anything we can ingest by mouth exogenously, because
Yes.
anything we ingest by mouth, a lot of it's synthetic, we can't absorb it, and even if it's natural, our stomach acids kill it off. And I think it's important for the viewers to know an antioxidant we take, like a vitamin C or a blueberry, is what we when we make our own antioxidants, that's a million times more potent than an
Yes.
antioxidant we take, a blueberry, an orange, a vitamin C. Your own antioxidants that your body make a million times more potent. So when we
Yeah.
activate our genes, we're revving up production of our own bodies good defenses, right? Our own SOD, our own glutathione, making our
Yes.
bodies make more mitochondria, and those are required for the cells to live, you
They
know,
are.
helping
They're
our
the
own bodies detox.
They are the engines. That's where your body gets the energy, is from those
Yes.
little engines, the mitochondria of your cells. And we've got like 37 trillion cells in our body. If when the lights start going out on those cells, your body slows down.
Mm. Mm. And I could tell you this too. I'm so glad that you're here sharing your personal story, because now they have the view of me as the medical professional and you as the
Yes.
patient who's been there, done that. And also, a lot of times with chemo, a lot of patients have to hold their chemo or stop it altogether because the reactions are so severe. Either the weight loss, the vomiting, or their platelets drop low, or their red cells or their white cells drop, and they'll hold the chemo temporarily or sometimes permanently. And I can
Yes.
tell you, all my cancer warrior clients now that activate their genes, they were able to tolerate all of their chemo treatments on time
Mhm.
without any postponements. I just recently had an 80-year-old client, female, that was able to tolerate every chemo treatment and on time. The only reaction she got, she was activating her genes throughout the whole chemo, was the hair loss. She didn't get the GI, the brain fog, the fatigue. She was actually even at our holiday party the same day or the next day, and like nothing. It was just like there and eating, and she didn't lose her appetite. She
Oh
was
my goodness.
energetic, had great energy, didn't have the brain fog at all. She's more alert than a lot of the younger people. So.
I totally understand that. I do. And one thing I want to mention, Shayna, I am not wanting to be on here to bash medicine or to
No,
bash
no, no.
medical doctors.
We
There is
need
a
that
place for
sometimes.
that, for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at some point, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being educated on what your options are. You have the
Mm,
choice to choose whatever you want. But I think when we have the options out in front of us, you can combine. You can make a choice,
mm.
and your health will show
Yes.
the
And
choice that you made.
that's awesome, because there are a lot of good doctors out there. They're trained in medicine is one thing, and also a lot of them. If you go to a very experienced doctor who say has been around 30 years, he probably doesn't know about this new cutting edge technology because it wasn't taught back then, and it's still not taught in the medical schools today, because maybe they just like keeping you sick. I don't know, for that recurring business. Just saying, throwing that out there. What else would you like to tell those cancer chemo warriors out there that are going through the battle right now and the struggle?
I have been in your shoes, and you have got to stay strong. Please keep an upbeat attitude. I promise you, your attitude towards your journey makes so much difference in how even those with young children. I had a preteen and a teenager, and the way they view you in a battle for your life, that's the way they're going to grow up. They're going to grow up as fighters. I have both of my daughters are fighters, and they are very strong.
Mm,
And so stay strong, stay positive. Your young ones will watch you. Your friends will watch you. If you are married, your spouse is watching you. It does not mean that you don't ever rest and that you don't
mm.
get tired. You have got to be kind and give yourself grace through these months that you will have your body riddled with medicines.
Mm.
But keep up the fight, please. Feel free to reach out to Shayna or if I can say that, Shayna.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
I think that's important because where we're saying with cancer, you have to get all your warriors out. Like this is the battle of your life. So we're saying, hey, you know what? If you're choosing surgery and chemo, radiation, whatever it may be, you can do that, but you can also activate your genes so that the nasty chemo reactions aren't so nasty and aren't lasting so long. And if your
yes,
doctor doesn't know about it, we can give you the information. If you know Karen, reach out to her. If you know me, reach out to me, and I can connect you with Karen. If you know Karen, reach out to her. And if you want to connect with me, she can connect you with me as well. And we can do a
right.
call together. And because we want to give you the information you need, that you can go to your doctor. If you want their permission, fine. But then if they're like, well, I don't know, we could tell you,
Mm-hmm.
to take the power into your own hands. Because I know now my cardiologist is now my client because he didn't know about gene activation. My
Wow.
former pain management doctor that I used to need when I had the nerve pain is now my client. And some doctors will turn a blind eye because they want to see you every month sick. But a lot of the
Yeah.
doctors might not know about it. And my next course moving forward in the near future is going to be towards healthcare providers. My vision got so much better. My eye doctor's like, what are you doing? I got to know about this gene activation stuff. So I want to create my next course for healthcare professionals where it's a little more scientific based. And this was awesome. So yeah, we encourage you guys to reach out to Karen, reach out to myself. Karen, how can they best get in touch with you? Like your
Um,
Facebook?
I am on Facebook under Karen English B. Sorensen. That is probably the
Perfect.
perfect way. You can message me through there if you'd like to.
Oh, I almost forgot to tell them about the upcoming Heal Naturally 5-day challenge. It's a
Yes.
free challenge. 5 days heal naturally. And you guys can go to worldwellnessexpert.com/natural or just worldwellnessexpert.com. That starts next week. When you go there, you're going to get a free seat. Free, 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 free. Who doesn't like free? And it's going to be 5 days on how we can heal with a more natural approach, and there's going to be some cool prizes and perks there. And I'm glad people can reach out to you from Facebook. That you guys can reach out to me through worldwellnessexpert.com. When you're there, you can sign up for my daily dose of positivity or my infrequent newsletter or our upcoming free 5-day challenge, Heal Naturally. And there's a private community for you there. When you guys go to worldwellnessexpert.com, you'll see where you can sign up for the newsletter or the daily dose of positivity or the free challenge or join our Facebook group. I think we have a connect or a contact tab, and you can follow, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not already. And I want to say thank you very much for coming. We're going to maybe have to do a part 2 of this where we enlighten them further and go into more depth or something. Would you be game for that?
I would be game for that. Thank you so much for having
Ooh.
me on. I
Ah,
love listening to how many lives you have touched through
oh.
gene activation, and even with your 30 years, over 30 years in the medical field, it's absolutely
Yes,
phenomenal.
thank you.
So,
And we want to impact, I think, millions of lives. Like I probably impacted
yes,
thousands, but I'm out for the millions. And I figured like this, now when I'm educating some of my clients are fellow nurse practitioners, fellow doctors, then they can now know of all the options to offer their clientele as well,
yes,
right?
yes,
Because the only way we can make a truly informed, educated decision is if we know all of our options. So we just want to
yes.
sum it up with you guys. Karen, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational, motivational story with us. We look up to you. We love your transformation. We want to say, women out there, get your mammo every single year, more often if you have symptoms or an abnormal. If you have dense breasts or fibrocystic, also get a sonogram at least yearly, if not every 6 months.
Yeah.
Do a self breast exam every single month. Look in the mirror, see if there's skin discoloration, see if there's nipple changes. Be your own advocate. If you know of this gene activation and or you feel like the doctor, you can always get a second opinion and third opinion. If they're like,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, don't worry about that lump, and you're like, well, I don't know, my gut's telling me something different, go get another test, go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion. But just please, please, please be your own advocate. Push for that extra test, push for that biopsy if you need it, get a second opinion. If you need a tiebreaker, get a third. I just had this scenario, Karen. I just want to leave them off with this. I was told by a recent doctor that my uterine lining is so thick, it's probably malignant. It should come out, the whole uterus and the ovaries, right? And this was by a male doctor, right? So I'm like, wait a second, you're gonna yank my organs out for what might be probably maybe a malignancy, right? With no biopsy. I'm like, no, no, no. So I went to a second doctor, and they're like, girl, your uterine lining is so thin, it's fine. And then I needed a tiebreaker. So I went to a third doctor, and they're like, listen, your uterine lining is so thin, you have like a 0.0001% of a cancer. So that first doctor almost yanked my uterus. Now they take a Hippocratic oath, and some of them will abide by it. And some of them just want to do surgeries they don't need to make money. And it's disgusting because you know what? On that OR table, I could have died of an infection, sepsis, not woke up from anesthesia, a hemorrhage. And you know what? All for the greed of a surgeon that's trying to sometimes scare people into surgeries they don't need. And if I wasn't in the medical field, I would have been like, oh my God, yeah, just take it all out. It might be cancer. Yeah, make sure you take the ovaries too. Maybe it's
Yes,
spread there. And it's important to be your own advocate. If you're feeling
it
you,
is.
the doctor's pushing you for a surgery and you might not need it, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. There's no
Yeah,
harm in that, you know?
right.
Mm-mm-mm. So thank you again, Karen. You can reach out to her on Facebook. You can reach out to me at worldwellnessexpert.com. Sign up for the Heal Naturally 5-day free challenge at worldwellnessexpert.com. And thank you, Karen, so much. And I look forward to for us
Thank you.
continuing this journey together. All
Thank you
right.
so much. And everyone
Ah,
have a great evening.
be well. God bless. And I like to say, Olo. I'll tell you later what that means. That means overcome life obstacle and optimistically lift others.
Ah,
It's
that
the
sounds
acronym for my
great.
book. All right, guys.
Thank
Be
you
well.
so much,
You're
Shayna.
welcome. Bye bye.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.